what has guided me in all these years very, very much is to literally ask myself, who is it actually that can grieve?
Tell me what you mean by self-mastery.
Okay. It literally means, to simplify it really, to stop pointing the finger outwards from you if something in your life is not going in the way of how you imagine things to go. Taking accountability, taking responsibility, and taking everything back to yourself, let's call it like this, and work on the things that you really can change, and at the same time learn to accept what is it that you cannot change. And ultimately that means to master yourself. That's the only thing that, at least in my perspective, more and more I come up as a conclusion. There is nothing else than what you are doing with yourself, how you are treating your body, how you are treating your mind, and what is it that you are cultivating inside of you in terms of expectations, in terms of perspective, looking into the world. So literally it means, what I can change about this world, I need to change inside myself. And this is the reason why self-mastery, it's all about, I wouldn't like to call it optimizing yourself. I actually would rather call it discovering yourself, or finding what actually all the time has already been there, but we just used to start looking on the outside because from the education, maybe this is what we have learned, that there's always something to look for on the outside of us.
What I really appreciated you saying was mastering and taking responsibility for what we can control, and then accepting, this is what I heard you say, what we can't accept. What in your life have you had to accept? Like, I just have to accept this. This is not a place where I can make it different.
I mean, especially, yeah, now that you mentioned, for example, the temple that I built up for many, many years. And just one of the illusions at some point for me was that I'm doing it out of a noble reason, in order to just share this knowledge for people so that they can also benefit from it. On the one side, physically benefit, and on the other side, also mentally benefit. And so I thought I'm doing something good only. And at some point, it became really also disturbing for me. How come that you still, no matter what you do, there will always be someone, there will always be people who will always find a reason in order not to like you or what you are doing. Yes, and this is, for example, one of the things, just to accept the fact that every type of, however you call it, every type of light always carries a shadow with it. So there's nothing which is ultimately only positive. You will always face both sides until you maybe realize for yourself and observe they always come in a double pack. Just like I mentioned many times before, I do feel like every success comes because of a lot of failures along the way. And wherever the sun rises here on this earth, at the same time, the sun is going down on another part of the earth. So that means things are not separate from each other. They sometimes are only very subjective.
Thank you. And I think part of the reason I wanted to focus on this notion of self-mastery and the idea that there are certain things that are outside of our ability to impact that is that I think sometimes when people hear that idea, they think they're going to be in charge all the time of everything, and then there's disappointment and grief and, despair, and I wonder if you could share how you work with the disappointment or grief or despair when it arises in your experience.
So, first of all, please let me say this beforehand already. Now, in the introduction, you said, for example, that I'm teaching, let's say, Zen Buddhism. I really have to correct that and say to myself, actually, I'm still on the path, or I'm still like, if you would like to call it like this, trying to actually find out, trying to learn to discern what is, let's call it, what is real and what is, for example, made up. And what has guided me in all these years very, very much is to literally ask myself, who is it actually that can grieve? Why is it? To who does the grief, for example, to who does it appear? And you mentioned the word at the same time now, self. Just like I said, self mastery. Now, from my understanding, there are two terms that we need to maybe identify first of all. Number one is when we talk about the self, and the second one is when we talk about the persona, or let's call it the role. My assumption right now, could be wrong, but this is my assumption, is that the majority of people living right now, we identify ourselves very, very much with the persona or with the roles that we are playing in this uh, in this human body form. So that means an Asian descendant. My parents came from Vietnam. I was born in Germany. I studied this. Then, with the age of 4, I started practicing martial arts. Meanwhile, I became somehow the headmaster of the Shaolin Temple Europe, which at the same time also already has been passed on to the next generation already. So, this is, for example, right now, this is the role, this is the persona that has been created throughout the last 38 years. And the interesting thought for me was, prior of attaining any title, any position, or any role that you are playing, the main question for me is, who or what is it actually that is taking these roles? And as an as an example, what do I mean exactly? It's literally when we say, this is my house, this is my car, this is my job, this is my body. Every time when you say, this is my, the question is, who is the me? So when I turn this around, your body, your house, your job, this is everything. This is all something that belongs to you. But who is the you? And turning this around, so this is actually the question, with what are you identifying yourself while walking through this lifetime? And I just discover, in a way for myself, if there is somebody who suffers, if there is somebody who can grieve, it always is the persona or it is the role that does it. And yes,
Well, first of all, thank you for taking us right to the heart of the matter here at the beginning of our conversation with this inquiry, who or what am I and who or what are you? When you sit with that as a meditative question. You're not the role. What do you come up with?
This is meanwhile. Meanwhile, I have really come to the point, and I understand also why in many ancient traditions it's extremely difficult to talk about it because it is not understandable. Yeah, because this, yeah, so really to make it very clear, I don't regard myself awakened, I don't regard myself enlightened, nothing like this. I just regard myself at the moment still also figuring out the riddles of this universe, if you want to call it like this. And it's like every time we judge, every time we discern something, we are already finding ourselves in the realm of separation. So even when I start t- to describe something, it's like by using my words, I'm already separating the wholeness by trying to describe it with a concept, which simply cannot be it. Let's call it like this. And this is why I find it more and more difficult to really talk about what is it, because I also don't want to like misguide people in actually giving them new concepts, because what we are trying to point at, what we're trying to, maybe you call it rediscover or to find, it is nothing that can be put into words. It's nothing that can be put into an idea or a concept. And so this is where I also understand why many of the masters in the past and also recent masters that are teaching me are constantly telling me, until you have that experience fully, 100% for yourself and have experienced it for yourself, it is extremely misleading to even try the attempt to talk about it. Yeah, and this is right now really the difficulty when we enter into this realm of spirituality, because yeah, and what does that spirituality mean? We are dealing with spirit. We are dealing with something that is apparently not in the realm of physicality. Physicality meaning having a form, having something that can be seen, having something that has a shape. But spirituality is formless, shapeless. So there is nothing to even, there's nothing that could even describe it. This is what makes it really difficult, honestly, to to stay in that realm and to speak about it.